growing wild in the fields, along the hedgerows, even in the cracks of the pavement and the corners of your own backyard. There are green plants so packed with nourishment that, measured the right way, they rival a steak for protein. And they are completely free. Our ancestors knew these wild greens intimately, gathering them by the basketful to keep their families strong through every season. Then we forgot them, mowing them down as weeds while paying good money for far weaker food. Today, I am going to help you see these wild greens for the treasures they truly are. Now let me be honest with you right from the start, the way a good friend would. When we say these wild greens have more protein than beef, we mean calorie for calorie, or by their dried weight, not pound for pound on the plate. A steak still holds more protein by sheer weight. But these humble greens are so protein-dense for how few calories they carry, and so loaded with vitamins and minerals besides, that they truly are among the most nourishing foods on earth. One firm word of caution before we begin: never eat any wild plant unless you are completely certain of what it is, because harmful lookalikes exist. Learn them well, or buy them from a trusted source. With that promise between us, let me show you 7 wild greens. We begin with stinging nettle, a plant most people fear and avoid, never knowing what they are missing. Yes, it stings when raw, but the moment you cook it or dry it, that sting vanishes completely, leaving one of the most nutritious greens in the entire world. Nettle is remarkably high in protein for a leafy green, and absolutely loaded with iron and other minerals, which is exactly why it has been used for centuries to strengthen those who felt weak and worn down. Cooked like spinach or brewed into a deep, mineral-rich tea, nettle is a wild powerhouse hiding behind a prickly reputation. Just wear gloves when you gather it. And remember that a quick blanch or dry completely disarms the sting, turning a plant most people run from into one of the most generous foods the wild has to offer. The second wild green is lamb's quarters, often called wild spinach, and one of the finest wild foods there is. This tall, dusty leaf plant springs up in gardens and disturbs soil all over the world, usually pulled and tossed aside as a weed. Yet lamb's quarters is richer in protein and many minerals than the cultivated spinach we buy in bags, and it cooks down exactly the same way, mild and pleasant and green. For thousands of years people gathered it gratefully, and it remains one of the most nourishing greens you can find, growing freely and asking for nothing. Third, we have watercress, the peppery green that grows in clean, cool streams and was treasured by the ancient Greeks and Romans as a food of strength. Calorie for calorie, watercress contains more protein than many cuts of meat, and it is so nutrient-dense that it has been ranked among the healthiest foods ever measured. With its bright, lively, peppery bite, watercress transforms a plain salad or sandwich into something genuinely nourishing. Just be sure to gather it only from clean water you trust, or buy it fresh, and enjoy one of the oldest health foods known to humankind. The fourth is purslane, that low, sprawling succulent with plump, juicy leaves that creeps across gardens and sidewalk cracks all summer long, dismissed by nearly everyone as a weed. But purslane is a true wild treasure, surprisingly high in protein and one of the richest plant sources of the same healthy omega-3 fats we prize in fish. The ancient Greeks and Romans ate it eagerly. With a pleasant, slightly tangy, lemony crunch, it is wonderful tossed raw into a salad. You have very likely been pulling a protein-rich superfood out of your garden for years without ever knowing it. Number 5 is dandelion greens, the leaves of that bright flower you have been battling in your lawn your whole life. Long before they were a nuisance, dandelion greens were a cherished spring food, eaten to wake up the body after the long winter. They are surprisingly rich in protein for a leafy green, along with vitamins and minerals in abundance. Young, tender leaves are best, with a pleasant bitterness that mellows when cooked. Free, abundant, and growing almost everywhere, the humble dandelion offers nourishment most people spend their lives trying to destroy. Think of all the money and effort poured into killing a plant that our great-grandparents would have welcomed onto the dinner plate. The dandelion has not changed at all, only our eyes have. The sixth is morina leaves, from the tree so remarkable it is called the miracle tree, grown across Africa and Asia for thousands of years. While the dried powder is famous, the fresh young leaves are a wonderful wild-style green in the warm places where morina grows, cooked much like spinach. They are an extraordinary source of complete protein, rare among plants, along with a wealth of vitamins and minerals. Where this generous tree grows, its leaves have nourished and strengthened whole communities, a living fountain of green nutrition that keeps on giving leaf after leaf. And finally, the seventh, amaranth greens, the leaves of the same ancient plant that gave the Aztecs their sacred grain. Long before the seeds were harvested, the tender leaves were eaten as a prized vegetable, and they still are across much of the world today, known by many names. Amaranth greens are rich in protein, iron, and calcium, cooking down into a mild, nourishing green much like spinach. Both a weed to some and a treasured crop to others, this humble plant offers two gifts in one, the grain and the green, and has quietly fed humankind for thousands of years. Now let me speak gently to those of you caring for someone you love. Perhaps you are looking after an aging parent who needs gentle, easy nourishment, or simply someone whose strength you long to build back up. I see you, and I want you to know that a soft, simple soup made rich with wild nettle or lamb's quarters, a nourishing pot of cooked greens prepared with patient and loving hands, can be a real and meaningful gift. These tender greens are easy on the body and deeply nourishing, and there is something beautiful, too, in the simple act of gathering them, even slowly, together. Free food, shared with love, has fed and comforted families since the very beginning, and there is a quiet dignity in knowing how to feed your own from the land beneath your feet. But honesty requires that I say this plainly. These wild greens are a wonderful part of a healthy diet, but they are not a replacement for proper medical or nutritional care. They are not a reason to skip the doctor, and protein needs vary from person to person, especially for the elderly and the unwell. Some greens can interact with medications or conditions, so if you are managing a health issue, speak with your physician or a dietitian first. And once more, never eat a wild plant you cannot identify with complete certainty, and avoid any that may have been sprayed with chemicals or gathered too close to a busy roadside. So the next time you walk past a patch of so-called weeds, or you reach for the mower or the spray, stop and look a little closer. The nettle, the lamb's quarters, the humble dandelion underfoot. For most of human history, knowing these wild greens was simply part of being alive, a knowledge handed down as naturally as breathing, a quiet insurance against hungry times. We lost it in a generation or two of tidy lawns and supermarket aisles, and we became a little more dependent and a little poorer for the forgetting. But it is not gone. It is growing all around you, free and abundant, waiting to be remembered. Learn them safely, gather them with gratitude, and stay with me, because the wild world has been setting a rich and generous table all along for anyone humble enough to sit down at it.